Chaos, tigers, and federal time. Let's get dialed in. Well, hello and welcome to Texas Talkin, the show that covers the serious and occasionally the downright bizarre. I'm your host, Shiloh Platts, blending a dose of wit with an iconic cowboy hat and a side of smartassery. Tonight, we're taking a brief detour from the crumbling institutions and corrupt politicians to discuss a different kind of chaos, American pop culture, and a man who became famous for being a living, breathing Florida man meme transported to Oklahoma. Yes, we're talking about Joe Exotic, the Tiger King. Now, if you somehow missed the Tiger King phenomenon during the endless lockdowns of 2020, well, lucky you. Joe Exotic is what happens when mullets, guns, exotic animals, and hair bleach collide at 80 miles an hour on Netflix. He wasn't just eccentric. He was a walking warning label. Do not attempt this at home. Joe ran a roadside tiger zoo, a place that appeared so chaotic on television, it made Jurassic Park look like a tightly regulated petting zoo. Joe sang love songs to jungle cats, launched political campaigns from a lawn chair, and sometimes treated the law like it was a set of polite suggestions. A true Renaissance man of our times. And America, in a moment of national boredom and desperation for something entertaining, elevated him into a cult hero. And that tells you everything you need to know about where we are as a civilization. Of course, every hero needs a villain, and Joe found his in Carol Baskin, a woman who runs a tiger rescue operation that looks suspiciously similar to Joe's zoo, except with slightly worse fashion choices. Their feud turned into a murder-for-hire plot. Now, Joe is sitting in federal prison after being convicted in what many believe was a highly questionable, politically motivated trial. To be sure, if you go online, you'll still find people demanding free Joe, like he's a misunderstood folk hero, an American Mandela, but with tattoos and considerably more felonies. In the end, Joe Exotic was put in front of us as a mirror of modern America, a cautionary tale, proof that you can ignore every law of common sense, every warning sign from society, and still land a Netflix documentary, a line of Halloween costumes, and even a write-in campaign for president. If that's not a sign of cultural decline, folks, well, hell, I'm not sure what is. But as it turns out, Joe tells a much different version of events, and he joins me next by phone from federal prison. You do not want to miss this. And joining us now is the one and only Joe Exotic. Joe, welcome
Hey,
to Texas Talkin'.
hey, I appreciate you giving me a platform and a voice. I appreciate it, Shiloh, very much.
Well, thank you for coming on. Let's get right to it. You were
Okay.
convicted of conspiracy to commit murder under what many people say were suspicious and questionable circumstances. Tell me more
Okay.
about that.
Okay. All right. Here's what actually I'm charged with. Okay. I don't have any conspiracy charges because conspiracy has a mandatory minimum of 10 years apiece. Okay, so they just charged me with interstate commerce murder for hire because Alan used a cell phone. All right, and then they only arrested me on one charge. And then the minute I asked for a trial, they superseded my indictment and charged me with 21 more charges, which was another murder for hire charge and 20 animal-related charges, which were the health certificates were messed up that the vet did, some receipts, and then taking 5 endangered species without a permit because I euthanized those 5 tigers. And they're claiming that I needed a permit to do that, which I never needed one for 23 years until they wanted to put me in jail.
And what do you think, Joe, brought about this scrutiny, these legal troubles that ultimately landed you in federal prison?
Well, When you have a voice or an opinion in this country, you pay the price for it. I ran for president in 2016. I ran for governor in 2018. I had a pretty loud voice about what was going on in this country. I fought the Big Cat Safety Act for nearly 10 years and kept it from passing. I testified in front of the House, the Senate, and the animal rights people, Carol, PETA, the Humane Society of the United States, they're the ones who lobby and pay the millions in dollars to get people elected, and they got a lot of power, and that's why I consider myself a political prisoner, because a lot of people don't realize that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, sponsored the Big Cat Safety Act for Carol that put me in here.
Really?
Well, yeah, and my people have screenshots. I think they posted them several times in the past of Kamala Harris's Twitter account where she brags about it, and she tells everybody to go watch Tiger King, because Tiger King, the producers of Tiger King, had an agenda, and that was to make us look crazy and a bunch of drug dealing crackheads that had exotic animals, and we were dangerous to the community. So they could pass this law. And the minute the Tiger King came out, then they nicknamed the Big Cat Safety Act the Tiger King bill, and they passed it, and Joe Biden signed it.
Now, you mentioned just a moment ago Carol Baskin. What can you tell us about Carol Baskin that we may not know?
Well, I have her original diary, and at some point I'll publish that. She definitely killed her husband. I would swear my freedom on it.
Do you know where Don Lewis is buried?
No, well, what little bit of him, she's had a few years since Tiger King came out. She closed her park to the public, so she's had time to move some things around. But what the tigers didn't eat, she put under the septic tank, not in it, under it, because the septic tank is a great big concrete vault. Okay.
Yes.
That nobody would ever lift up out of the ground. Okay, they'll suck the crap out of it, but they'll never remove the concrete vault. And she installed one the day before she reported him missing. Okay, but the thing that I don't understand is because they've convicted people without bodies before. His power of attorney that she created, because it says on the second page that it was designed by Carol Lewis, which was her name at the time, and she's the one who filed it with the court in order to make it a legal document. And then the sheriff proved in Tiger King that Don's signature was forged. So if Carol created it and Carol filed it, Carol had to be the one to forge it. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. But who in the hell in their power of attorney puts in the first sentence, in case of my disappearance, instead of upon my death, I hereby leave all this shit,
Very, very strange wording.
Yeah, but I went to Florida and I interviewed people for years, and I dug in, and I went to Florida. It's on my YouTube channel. I filed 60 counts of felony notary fraud against Carol. Criminal charges, because she had 7 nonprofits and she was using Tiger money to buy houses, and then she would to rent houses, and then she would sell them to her other nonprofit for $10, and her daughter would notarize them. Okay, so they had this perfect little scheme going on, and I got.
This call is from a federal prison.
I got too noisy and I got too close. She couldn't put me out of business by suing me. So her and Jeff and Lowe and James Garrison teamed up because Jeff wanted my zoo, He conned his way in and got his name on the property, and then we found out that he was piss broke, and he didn't have anything. But it was too late. His name was already on the property with my mom, so we couldn't get him off. And everybody in the dog has sued him and got judgments against him, but when you ain't got nothing, you can't get nothing.
Can't get blood from a turnip, as the old saying goes.
No, absolutely. So Jeff, good old Jeff and Lauren, and James were running quite a criminal enterprise from that zoo, and that's why I left in June of 2018. I moved to Florida and got a job washing dishes because Jeff and Lauren would sit in office all day long on Facebook and Instagram and lure young girls. They would actually fly them in from other states to Oklahoma City and pick them up. So they would lure young girls to the zoo using tiger cubs. Oh, come play with the tiger cubs for free. We'll fly you down. We'll do all this shit. And then they would have them stay the night at their cabin. They built a special room on the side of their cabin.
Are we talking about underage girls or?
We're talking about 18 to 25-year-old girls. Okay. And they would drug them with ketamine and cocaine, and then rape them while they were unconscious and videotape them and blackmail them.
Wow.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
And that's what was going on at that zoo. And then James was the mastermind behind fake IDs and driver's licenses and shit. And they would sit in that office and charge up tens of thousands of dollars of care credit cards and Bowflex and Wayfair and shit like that, and then have this stuff shipped into a fake address, under a different name, and then sell it out of James's liquidation store at Arbor, Oklahoma. They had the perfect shit, but how did they get a federal wildlife agent to cover all this up to put me in prison to shut me up? Somebody paid him. Carol or somebody had to pay him.
So, Joe, what does America not know about Joe Exotic that you'd like to tell us?
Well, first of all, I have never gotten a bad letter, a hateful letter, because hate people that want to hate on you are too lazy to write a hate letter.
They're not too lazy to hate on me. They go after me on social media all the time.
Well, yeah, because they're keyboard warriors. That's the lazy way,
There you
but
go.
to sit down and write a letter and take it to the mailbox, they won't do that. And let me tell you, I've had hundreds of thousands of letters, but the newspapers piss me off because they say that I've been charged with animal abuse. I have never been accused, charged, or convicted of animal abuse by any law enforcement agency on this planet. Okay? The animal-related charges I have, the 5 of shooting those tigers and putting them to sleep, like my inspector told me to, was taking them without a permit, like I had to go file for a permit to go hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nothing to do with animal abuse. And then that was only misdemeanors. It wasn't even felonies. Okay, but what Tiger King, there's 2 things that I really was discussing about Tiger King. One is it done nothing to help tigers. Saf that lost her arm, they should have interviewed her in front of a tiger cage, in front of the tiger that took her arm off.
Sure.
Because she never blamed that tiger. She blamed herself. Okay,
Interesting.
and she could have talked about the conservation of tigers, why there's so many in captivity, what you got to do to take care of them in captivity. But instead, they put her in a junkyard to make it look like tiger people are junkie. Okay, and then who the hell interviews a hitman in a bathtub? I mean, really. And then they got John Finley running around with no shirt on the entire time, with 3 teeth sticking out of his head. They had an agenda, and they portrayed it very well. But what they portrayed me as to be this meth head really pisses me off because, first of all, I didn't.
This call is from a federal prison.
I didn't allow drugs or alcohol on that zoo property, and that's why the staff always was so hateful on me because it wasn't a party. I mean, people could die there in an instant.
Yeah, someone lost their arm.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how many times Eric Calley let tigers out while we were open to the public. That's why I carried a gun, because I had to protect the public. Okay, but I was the only one running around in the whole show with teeth and clothes on.
Well, you certainly captured the nation's attention during a time where we were experiencing shutdowns, right? It was during COVID. And so millions of people watched this documentary.
Did you watch season 2?
No, sir, I have not seen season 2.
Okay, season 2, James, Jeff, Alan, Lauren, all admitted to perjury on world television that they lied and made this up. okay? And then Alan goes one step further on season 2, and he takes my lawyers and Netflix's producers to the zoo and shows them where he hid a murder weapon where their original plan was to kill me to begin with.
Unbelievable.
Why the hell am I still in prison? I cannot get Trump to pay attention for shit.
Well, in the couple of minutes that we have left, I wanted to ask you about that because you are in prison, as I understand it, serving a up to 21-year sentence. Is that right?
Well, okay, you got to understand prison, okay? 21-year sentence. They have me due to be out that right now with no laws changing and nothing else happening, which I should get a 2-point reduction anytime soon, which would take 4 more years off. They actually have me going out in September of 30.
Okay, so 5 more years, 5 and some change.
Right. So it's actually going to be like a 12-year sentence until some laws change, more changes, that I actually spend in prison. But, I'm on appeal right now, and I've been on appeal for 1 year and 3 months with over 1,000 exhibits of new evidence, and that includes 700 phone recordings of the federal agents telling their witnesses how to lie under oath.
When do you think this appeal process might move forward? And correct
Any
me if I'm
day.
you are in Fort Worth, Texas, if I
I
understand
am.
correctly. Okay.
I
So
am.
what's next for you, Joe, when you get out? Are you going to stay in Texas or what are your plans?
Well, it depends because I have other half now, and he's illegal, and he's going to be deported in next month, the 17th of next month. But I hired one of the best immigration lawyers on the planet, Francisco Hernandez, who started out on my case early, representing him. So they're trying to get his asylum done so he can stay in America. But if he doesn't, I have all intentions on moving to Cozumel, Mexico. It just depends. There's so many ifs.
Well, Cozumel's not a bad place to land.
It's not. But it all depends on if I'm going to be a felon, if I'm going to be on probation, or if I'm going to walk out of here free. There's a lot of ifs, so I'm really not making a whole lot of plans just yet because I don't want to disappoint myself.
Well, Joe,
But
go ahead. We've got a few
Shiloh,
seconds.
this thing beeped, which means it's going to hang up in 60 seconds. So I just want to say, tell everybody out there that I love them. Share everything that my people post on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, especially evidence. And hashtag Free Joe Exotic in every damn post Trump and Vice President, Vance puts up. Because that's what's going to get me out of here is numbers, and people scare politicians.
Joe Exotic, ladies and gentlemen. Joe, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey,
God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of
I
Texas.
appreciate it. And if they want you to get on joeexoticofficial.com, go to the evidence link and watch the videos of them.
Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.